Well, thank all of you for coming here today. I think the takeaway from this, after listening to all this, is something that's troubled me from the beginning, and that is how difficult this is. We know the problem. We have bad actors putting out bad information. The difficulty is, how do you segregate those people who are doing this from Americans who have the right to do this? I've looked at the stuff that as everybody has, that is part of this, but yet, if you took one of those pieces, any one of them individually, and looked at it and said, we just discovered who's doing this, it's John Doe in East Overshoe, New Jersey, there's nothing illegal about it. It may be disgusting, it may be untrue, it may be with a bad motive, but there's nothing, indeed it's protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution. So how do you separate that person from someone who is doing the same thing, but coming from Russia, but whose motives are to enhance Russia by pulling down America? How do you police that? I think probably the question that Senator Warner asked about putting a speed bump in so that somebody can evaluate this. I mean, that kind of puts, I want to be the evaluator. And I think most everybody does, and that's the problem. And then you talked about protecting anonymity. How can you protect anonymity if you're going to actually do something against someone who is doing something that we don't want done? These are extremely difficult questions, and I appreciate all the kind things you've said about this is bipartisan, we all need to come together, et cetera, et cetera. We all agree with that. But how in the world do you do this? I mean, the takeaway here has got to be that this is just an enormous, if not an impossible thing. Mr. Helmuth, your thoughts?
Yes, absolutely agree. I think that is the fundamental question. In our research, we identified upwards of 40,000 accounts centered around Ukraine that are putting out vociferously anti-Ukraine content. And ultimately, as the crux is, are these bad actors that are doing this, or is this other actors practicing what might otherwise be their free speech? So that's challenged. There are bot detectors, so there are some ways, and I'll defer to others on the committee who can speak to these, but there are bot detectors that are available that can detect some types of content that mimic the characteristics of bots. But it is an arms race as developers develop ways to detect bots based on either inhuman levels of content, timing of their tweets, or what have you. The producers of those bots will then identify other ways of circumventing that and staying covert. So it's an arms race, and I think it'll just require constant research and evaluation to develop and update new techniques.
Mr. Resta?
What you're describing is the significant problem for researchers as well when we look at information operations, trying to gauge, again, attribution or whether this is organic or not.
But what do you do about it when you do get the attribution? I mean,
we try to look at the content. Has it appeared elsewhere? Is it affiliated with past IRA operations, or is it coming from somewhere else? So we look at the origin. We look at the voice, the actors that are pushing the content. Are they bots? Are they humans? Is there something off about the bio related to past tweets? There's a number of signatures there. And then we look at the dissemination pattern. Does it look like it's been artificially amplified? Is it being run through accounts or groups or pages that seem a little bit dubious? We try to flag things for the social platforms as well. We believe firmly and in transparent communication, where we're saying, this is what we're seeing, what are you seeing? They have access to metadata and to account information and to email addresses, phone numbers, things that people have registered their accounts with. That is also a significant part of the investigation of the operation. There is no easy answer to this question. This is the primary challenge, and this is where we see even influence operations going towards laundering narratives, either through the unwitting or through participants. But it's a hard problem.
The analysis that you're talking about is you're looking for all these things, but you'll find, I assume, some actors that are what we would consider bad actors, but yet some actors that we would consider good actors, whether it was a U.S. government operation or something. Who makes the determination as to who's a good actor and a bad actor? That's what I really, really struggle with.
And I think
Dr. Kelly, why don't you get your 2 cents worth of me for my...
Thank you, Senator. So it's tractable to tell what's fake. It's harder but doable to figure out who's behind it. And then you need to understand who's behind it, be tracking the landscape of threat actors. That's where somebody is making a determination who's against our interests and who doesn't matter. Then once you have that, you know, it's up to government and other appropriate folks to figure out the response. I think to do that detection in the first place requires an enormous amount of data and sophisticated methods of an analysis, and it's not just data from one platform, so it can't happen only internally. It has to happen with data from multiple sources, which then gets to your, I think, extremely important questions about who makes these determinations and who has the right to see that private data. I think we have to look at a model that's like cybersecurity firms, where they're trusted industry partners that everybody trusts, that they know are going to be secure in the way they handle that data. We need some sort of a facility like that where these advanced analytics can happen.
Of course, this is different than cybersecurity in that with cybersecurity, you don't want anybody entering private space, whereas with this, you want everybody entering, and that to me differentiates to my time's up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Senator Feinstein.